Recently, in about a month, we are dealing with election commission, or we have seen many newses regarding election or election commission like that, right? We have also dealt with election commission, appointments of election commission in the last classes. Remember? Okay. So election is one of the most important what topic these days. So keep an eye on it. Also, election commission is a constitutional body, so it could be important in prelims and mains as well. Okay. So one nation, one election is a topic which is like for some years it has been in the news, but it has now been in news mainly because central government has set up a panel headed by former President Ramnath Kovind to explore the feasibility of one nation, one election. That is why now it's important again. It was important before as well because simultaneous elections were in news. Okay. So now we are discussing because a central panel was appointed by the central government, headed by the former president, to assess the feasibility of the one nation, one election. Now, what is the need for one nation, one election? Okay. What will be the need? Cost of conducting elections. Yes. See, India, accordingly, we have a 5-year elections. Like that does mainly happen in the case of Lok Sabha. Once in 5-year elections are taking place. But when we consider about the state elections or state elections, legislative assembly elections mainly, it is happening like 5 to 7 times in different states in every year. Okay, that is why Indian polity is perennially in an election mode. Okay, as we can say that in a year there will be 5-6 elections which are taking place in different parts of our country. So every year elections are taking place. Once in 5 years is mainly in the case of Lok Sabha only. Every year we can say that different parts of the country's election is taking place. So that is one of the important need, or why it is discussed that one nation, one election is a need of the country. Okay. Next one is promoting good governance. As elections are frequent, parties and governments are always in campaign mode. Okay, if simultaneous elections are held, it will give a clear 4 years to the political parties to focus on governance. Understood? It is not, if election is taking place in a state, it is not like the state parties in the state or the people in the state only will campaign for the election. Not like that, right? Even the central government, if the candidate of the central government or central government party will also be attaining campaign in the state. Okay. So campaigning, year-long campaigning, or even the 5 years, not only one time is not the thing. Like for Lok Sabha elections, not only for Lok Sabha elections, they are campaigning. Like for state elections as well, campaigning are done. So campaigning is happening every single time. So this will hinder good governance. Okay, promote good governance. As elections are frequent, parties and governments are always in campaign mode. If simultaneous elections are held, it will give a clear 4 years to political parties to focus on governance. Now, next one is promote developmental work. Okay. During an election, there is a code of conduct, model code of conduct. Okay. It abstains the parties, or it abstains the current government or even the parties from doing certain works. Okay. This will be like equating to the development works mostly. So this will hinder the development work in the state or in that area. Okay. So development is getting hindered by these campaigns or these elections taking place every year or every time. Okay. So that is the next one. Promote developmental work. Model code of conduct curtails some powers of an incumbent government during elections, resulting in delays in implementing welfare schemes, which are already underway. Okay. A single election can restrict this delay to once in every 5 years. Clear? Now, reduce election expenditure. As I said before, elections lead to massive expenditure. Okay. by political parties and other stakeholders. So if Lok Sabha election is happening, Government of India is spending. If state election is happening, states are spending along with some contribution from the Government of India as well. So massive amount of expenditure is taking place, right? So this could be curtailed, or this could be ended by a single election. As there is only one election means only single time investment. Okay. So reduce election expenditure. Frequent elections lead to massive expenditures by political parties and other stakeholders. If concurrent election to Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly is held, then the expenditure can be shared between central and respective state governments. Clear? Okay. Now, better manpower management. Okay. For every election, protection is provided by CAPF or like security forces, right? And also the people or the candidate, the election conducting people will be usually of officers or teachers. Mainly elections are happening, or the polling booth is mainly a school, right? So the teachers of that school will be the election conducting officers mainly. So this also will hinder their productivity also. Okay. So this will be manpower management will be done if it is a single election. Frequent elections lead to lock-in of CAPF and state police forces for prolonged periods. This takes over a portion of the force which could otherwise be better deployed for the internal security purpose. Synchronized polls will reduce the frequency of diversion of forces from their normal duties. Clear? So manpower could be managed better. Now next one is invisible in incalculable socio-economic cost. As I said before regarding the polling booths, mainly teachers and other officers are involved in the purpose of elections. So it will hinder or it will cause an invisible socio-economic cost. Okay. Why? Education is getting hindered. Schooling is getting hindered, right? Due to election duties, each election also means teachers missing from schools and colleges. The entire revenue machinery on election-related work, officers and vehicles put to use on the election. So this causes an invisible and incalculable social economic cost. This is an invisible one. It is not like we are thinking in that aspect, right? It is always there, but it is not an addressed one. Okay. Now, next one is break political nexus. Political corruption nexus mainly. As we said before, there is a high expenditure of election. Okay, this will in fact lead to the corruption processes or black money. Okay. So break politics corruption nexus. As elections happen frequently, political parties are constantly looking for inflow of funds. This is considered as one of the key drivers for corruption and black money in the country. Now, next one is break the perpetual cycle of social evils. That is polarizing event. Like election campaigns are usually or even take place using communalism angle, casteism, etc. These are the social evils. Okay, campaigns are taking place usually on these grounds these days. Okay, so these are social events, and these getting perpetuated, or will be a vicious cycle forming every year, rather. Okay, so break the perpetual cycle of social evils by one election. It could be broken. Okay. Elections are polarizing events which have accentuated casteism, communalism, corruption, and crony capitalism. If the country is perpetually on election mode, there is no respite from these evils. Elections are taking place every year 4 to 7 times, and these evils are getting used by the campaigners, and these are getting into a vicious cycle, right? Now, next one is disruption of public life. Okay. In the campaigning time, most example we could be seeing like the campaigning time traffic blocks and all, right? Public life is getting hindered by this. Frequent elections lead to disruption of normal public life and the impact of functioning of essential services. For example, holding of political rallies disrupt road traffic and also lead to noise pollution. An environmental aspect is also being addressed here. Now, promote competitive populism. Okay, in the election times, we may mostly hear about freebies, right? Free something, free kit are given, free rice or something like that. Freebies are mostly given in the election time mainly. So it is not of competitive populism. Okay, it is a freebies culture. So this is not what a democracy is, right? So promote competitive populism. Given the desperation of parties to win elections, there is a tendency to squander resources on short-term, unproductive freebies at the cost of infrastructure, quality education, and healthcare. This can be reduced to great extent through simultaneous elections. Understood? Freebie cultures are getting created usually in the election time. So this is considered, or this is fulfilled using the money or the resources for the infrastructure, long-term infrastructure purposes or social well-being purposes. Okay, so this is against the populism, competitive populism. Okay, single election will ensure that competitive populism is promoted. Okay, so we discussed about the need of one election, one nation, one election. What were the needs of one nation, one election? Yes, we have a plurality in elections every year. We have a perenniality rather. Okay, perenniality in elections every year. Then expenditure, high expenditure. It will lead to political corruption excess. Then good governance. It will hinder good governance. Then manpower disruption. Then invisible social. It will cause invisible socio-economic cost. Then corruption prevention. Okay. Then public hindrance of public life. Example is traffic during rallies and all. Then even noise pollution could be said. Competitive populism is getting disrupted. For example, freebie cultures are getting encouraged. Then yes, social evils. The vicious cycle of social evils continues. Casteism, communalism, etc. during the campaign time. Then it hinders development. Right? Why? Model code of conduct is being initiated during every election, and this is usually in ties with the developmental purposes. Okay, clear? Okay. Now we now discussed about the need for one nation, one election. Now what we are going to address is what are the challenges of the implementation. Okay. First one is legislative challenges. In the constitution, we have procedures for, or we have the procedures for the election of the Lok Sabha or the election of the state legislative assembly, etc. Even in the constitution, in the representation of People's Act, etc., we have certain guidelines or certain procedures for it. So if we need to change into a simultaneous election, we need to change these documents as well, right? So there is a legislative challenges or changes what is needed in the process. Clear? Legislative changes. Such a change means conversion into simultaneous elections. Okay? Requires a major overhaul of the existing legislations like the Constitution, the Representation of the People's Act 1951, and rules of procedure of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. This all deals with the election of these areas. Okay? Example, Article 356 on the power to impose president rule in the state, which will have to be loosened. Okay, president's rule happens when breakdown of the state machineries. Okay, and in a case where re-election could not be considered. Okay, so this all requires president So for example, president's rule should be changed, and article 356 president's rule is addressed. Okay, this article should be amended for if a simultaneous election is promoted. Now, examples of other examples are Article 83 and 172. It deals with the election in the Lok Sabha and the State Legislative Assembly. So this also should be amended. Okay, so Constitution, Rules of Procedures, and also the Representation of People's Act. These legislative changes should be made if we want to implement the simultaneous election process. Next one is synchronization election. Till now is that if, for example, if Kerala is having an election and now Kerala is having an election, it will have a 5-year term, right? If State Legislative Assembly, in case of State Legislative Assembly. Last year, UP had an election. Okay. Now, what will be their rest time of their government time? 4 years as of now, right? So, if we implement a synchronizing election or a one simultaneous election now, there will be difference in the time of government time, right? Governing time will be different for different states. This will be a problem. Okay. Synchronizing elections, the term of a larger number of state assemblies will have to be curtailed or extended for an initial synchronization of the state elections with that of the Lok Sabha. Okay, Lok Sabha elections, if it is not like a state assembly only are getting simultaneously. Okay, Lok Sabha elections are also to be considered. If next year Lok Sabha elections are happening, then the elections which we conducted, right, as I said before, in Kerala and in Madhya Pradesh, their time should be curtailed. Okay, they'll only be having a 1 year in Kerala and 2 year in UP. If Lok Sabha elections are and State Legislative Assembly elections are getting simultaneously done. Okay. Now, synchronizing the election calendar in any given state with that of the sender would deprive a state one of the essential elements of Westminster democracy. That is, a government may choose to dissolve, or a government may fall if it loses the confidence. It is mainly discussing in the Parliament chapter. Have you done with that? Parliament polity? Okay. We have Westminster model of democracy. There is 2 model of democracy: presidential, mainly presidential democracy, and prime minister or Westminster model of democracy. It's not like president in the Westminster model of democracy. If in the parliament a government loses confidence of all other parties, then government will be dissolved. Okay, that not happen in the case of presidential democracy. Okay, so if the elections of the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies are getting simultaneously done, if in the state legislative or if in the Lok Sabha a government is getting disrupted or dissolved, it will affect the state legislative assembly as well. If a party in the center is getting dissolved, then automatically the state legislative assembly government will also get dissolved. Okay, this is against the spirit of our democracy, like Westminster democracy. Okay, you will be dealing with that in the Parliament chapter. We have 2 types of democracies: Westminster and presidential. Presidential, it doesn't depend on the confidence. Okay, president has a term of 5 years, and it will 4 years or 5 years. He will complete its course. But in case of India or Westminster democracy, if in the Parliament he addresses with no confidence, then the government will dissolve. That is it. Now, attaining consensus. It's not like government could unilaterally or single-handedly decide whether simultaneous elections could be done or not. Okay, consensus from other parties. Other stakeholders are also necessary if stakeholders involving us as well. Okay, we'll be like people are used to the different elections, right? In the state assemblies and in the Lok Sabha. They know that in every 5 years, Lok Sabha elections will be done, and every 5 years in the state legislative assembly and also in the local section, local government. There will be election is done after this years. Okay, so they also need to be educated. People also need to be educated. So consensus from the people as well as different parties are required. Clear? So consensus, attaining consensus to create a workable framework, support and consensus from opposition parties, state governments, regional parties and pressure groups is needed. Okay, this would be challenging given the wide diversity of Indian politics. Now, inadequate manpower. Now, if we have to conduct elections simultaneously in the center and in every state, we need that much manpower. Okay, as I said before, even the military forces, CRPF, like etc. Then also the conducting officers, including the teachers of different colleges and schools, etc. We need this much in a single time. Okay, the inadequate manpower is a problem of the current situation. So, to validate this, according to the report issued by Common Cause in 2019, the Indian police force is at only 77% of the sanctioned strength. Okay, so this itself indicates that, see, already only 77% is present. Okay, for internal security and also state polices are required, right? For election conduction also they are required. So enough manpower is not there if we are trying to conduct a simultaneous election. Next one is operational challenges. Operational challenges is we are using EVMs, right? Electronic voting machines. Okay. And also personnel, including manpower, etc. is likely to pose a big challenge to the operational feasibility of simultaneous elections. We need this much electronic voting machines at a single time. Same as the case of manpower. In a single time, we need that much manpower as well as machines or operational operational sections, right? So this is a challenge to the implementation. Now, against federalism. Federalism, what is federalism? Yeah, there is a two system of government in the center as well as in the states, right? That is the federalism in simpler terms. So if we go by the Lok Sabha elections, or if we go according to the Lok Sabha elections in the state as well, we retain to have a centralizing tendency, right? If we are going according to the central government's term, then the centralized tendency is occurring, right? So this is against the federalism. Okay, clubbing elections amount to diluting federal system in favor of centralization. This leads to homogenization of the country instead of bringing equity, sustainable plurality, and promoting local and regional leadership. Okay, federalism is also one of the reason because we have a diversity of population. Okay, so if centralization increases, homogenization may occur. Okay, this is also a challenge to the implementation. Now, next one is erosion of accountability. So this is because in every 5 years, if we are conducting elections, 5 years is the term we are giving to the government as well, right? So if elections are conducted frequently, then there will be an accountability or check in the part of people as well, right? If one government is not doing something, then we can have a right that, or we have a right through voting that we can change the government, right? If simultaneous elections, this happens only even 5 years, every 5 years. In the states, if one state is not happy with the government or with the political party, then it is a model to the other states as well, right? So the other states are getting a model or a perception that what could be done, right? So this every check is getting disrupted if it is a simultaneous election. Okay. Erosion of accountability. Having to face electorate more than once every 5 years enhances the accountability of politicians and parties. It often forces governments to reconsider their plans and policies after each election. Okay, if they fail in one election, it is because they have done something or people are not accepting them. Okay, they'll change their strategy or they will change their plan, mostly according to the positive and positive for the people, right? So there lies an accountability among the political parties. But simultaneous elections would give a government immunity from public scrutiny. Now, impact on voter behavior. Not all voters are highly educated to know who to vote for. There is a highly chance that a voter will vote for the same party both for the center and the state. Clear? Now, issue of dissolution or by-election. Okay. Here, by-elections are inevitable. If we are taking any election or we conducting any election for a state legislative assembly, it's usual that we are conducting for the same constituency. Again, in case of by-election or a dissolution, right? If elections are simultaneous, then there is no chance of such by-elections or dissolutions, right? So there, another or solution for this is only president's rule. Okay, elections couldn't be conducted within 5 years or before that, right? So what should be done? Only a president's rule. So this creates a problem, right? So issue of dissolution or by-election. The occasional dissolution of government or by-elections in India is all but inevitable. In such cases, election cycle would go out if it is in a sync. In case of dissolution, the only option would be to bring president's rule until the next synchronized election cycle, which is violated democratic values. Clear? Now, sidelines, regional parties and issues. Okay. As I said before, India is a diverse country. Okay. We have different issues in the different parts of the country. So if, as I said before, one election is happening and if voters are voting for the same party, then, or rather, the different issues are not getting addressed. The same elections may be same manifesto or same plans for every single area of the country. Okay. This will not address the local issues. So diversity is not addressed. Okay. Sidelines, regional parties and issues. In simultaneous elections, the national narrative submerges the regional story. Okay. More centralization or more homogenization will occur, which pushes smaller parties, local issues, and concerns of marginalized communities to the sidelines. We have two systems of representation. Do you know that? Two systems of representation. First past the post system and proportional vote in proportional representation in the place of single transferable vote. Okay. First past the post system is what we are doing. We are electing or we are voting, right? That is first past of the post. That is majority. Who gets the majority will win. Okay. Proportional representation is like it is given seats to a party, and within that, the votes are getting arranged. It's not like we are not directly electing a person. Okay. So the first past the post system is majorly followed in the country. The single transferable vote or proportional representation is mainly practiced in case of election of the president and Rajya Sabha, etc. Okay. Why first past the post system? Because we can choose who we want. Okay. That is the major reason. We will vote for someone who we want. If he gets certain amount of vote, then he will be our leader. Okay. So why that thing? Because the people and the candidate will have a direct connection. Okay. Direct connection. He will be knowing, and during the campaign time as well, he will be addressing to the issues. Okay. Issues of the local people. Okay. So if one manifesto or one election and the centralization happens, this is getting missed or this is not addressed. The local issues will not be getting addressed. Okay. So this also creates a challenge in the implementation of a simultaneous voting system. Okay. Now, diversity of India, as I said before. The Law Commission's recommendation of simultaneous elections specifically drew from countries like Sweden, Belgium, and South Africa. These are smaller countries. They don't have diversity like us. Okay. So that could be possible, or simultaneous elections could be possible in these smaller countries. But a bigger country like us with a lot of diversity, this is not a possible thing right now. Okay. Unlike India, they are relatively small, less diverse nations, and the electoral systems are based on proportional representation. Clear? Okay. We are mostly following the first past the post system. Proportional representation are mainly followed by them because simultaneous elections are happening and diversity is less, smaller countries. Clear? Hence, the applicability of such models in India are questionable. Now, no effect on individual election expenses. Simultaneous elections cannot bring down the expenses of the candidates. Practical experience shows that candidates will be spending the same amount by adopting innovative methods. Similar thing with expenditure. Okay, expenditure means higher expenditure is still will happen. No, nothing like a reduction of election as a whole will be there reduction in the election expenditure. But if we consider of individual election expenditure, this is not reduced. Clear? So now we discussed about the challenges of implementation. What were the challenges? First thing we could be is about the diversity of the country. Then legislative changes, constitution, representation of people's act, and rules of procedures of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Like that, election, these all should be amended or changed. Okay. Then manpower, decrease in manpower along with other teachers and operational abilities as well. Then no individual cost reduction is happening. Okay, same reduction cost. Now, next one is Law Commission was the one who recommended simultaneous elections, but the model was from the Sweden and South Africa, etc. Smaller countries, lesser diversity. So it is not addressable in case of India right now. It will also lead to centralization tendency or more than that, homogenization. No addressing of the local issues. Then political parties will and regional political parties will not be addressed. Then against federalism. Okay, then consensus required. Okay, different stakeholders. Then impact the voter behavior. Many are uneducated, so they may vote for the same party, central and state level as well. Will be no checks and balances of dissolution and by-election mainly. Okay, if a dissolution or by-election dissolution happens, the only possibility is president's rule for the next 5 years. Then regional issues are sidelined. Okay, clear? Okay. Now, next is suggestions. What could be done? Conducting elections in 2 phases. We have told, or we just checked about the simultaneous elections everywhere at the same time in the center and the state. Now, a suggestion is there about conducting elections in 2 phases. Parliamentary Standing Committee. It was suggested by the Parliamentary Standing Committee. Suggested the simultaneous election to be considered in 2 phases. Phase 1 to be in sync with that of the Lok Sabha elections. And phase 2 is approximately midway of the term. Okay, like 2.5 years of the Lok Sabha elections. This means that conduct elections every 2.5 years or 30 months in the country. Once the entire electoral cycles of Lok Sabha and all state assemblies are synchronized. Clear? So one of the problems we addressed was like in the 5 years, within the 5 years, there will be no checks and balances, right? So with this, they are telling that that could be addressed. Also, there can be a synchronization over time. Now, schedule of by-elections. Parliamentary Standing Committee recommended that by-elections to all seats that become vacant during a year may be conducted together during a predetermined time period. All by-elections or all vacant seats should be considered, and in every vacant seats, there should be a simultaneous election. Okay. Now, Law Commission recommendation. These 2 recommendations, conducting elections in 2 phases, as well as if by-elections, there is a need of by-elections, the vacant seats, elections to the vacant seats are conducted simultaneously. These 2 recommendations are done by Parliamentary Standing Committee. Now, the Law Commission recommends that elections of legislative assemblies whose term ends 6 months after the general elections to Lok Sabha can be clubbed together. Clear? in the state legislative assembly, if they have a term left only 6 months from the Lok Sabha elections, they could be clubbed again. Okay. So in the state legislative assembly, their term will only be 4.5 years. Clear? The result of such elections can be declared at the end of the assembly's tenure. Elections, conducting elections are the possibilities said here. These were some of the suggestions of the conducting elections, how simultaneous elections could be conducted. Clear?